Okay, all right, let's kick this thing off. Thank you everyone for your time today. So we got 200 folks in climbing, which is perfect. So I'm Captain Steve Lawver, one of the members of the COVID-19 response team, a member of Air Force Ventures. And so we're going to talk about a number of the tools that are out there to help to get your solutions and your ideas out to affect the fight in a timely manner. So we're going to go through those today. And before we get started, I'm just going to go through some quick admin. So rules of engagement. This call is being recorded. Let me make sure right now it is. Yep. So if you don't want something to be shared that you asked, just don't post it into the Q&A. And that leads into, if you do have questions, there is a Q&A function within Zoom. So ask the questions there, and then we are going to read them out and answer them as we get to the end of this call. This will be a 1-hour call versus 2. So we'll move fairly quick, and then we will post the recording to afwerx.af.mil/coronavirus after we're done with it. Okay, let's do some introductions first. So anyone who is on the, let's see, SBIR Center of Excellence team, John, you mind doing a quick intro?
Yeah, hey everybody, John McKenney.
You might be muted.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay, sorry. John McKenney, everybody, from the Air Force SBIR Center of Excellence for Contracting. Everybody calls me Pockets, including Steve. So if I'll primarily be a contracting POC here. So if there's questions on the 20.R direct to phase 2, I'll be your guy for that. Other than that, I'll be here to answer any questions that come our way.
Awesome, thank you. And then from the RapidX team, Jessica Steinhoff, you mind doing a quick intro as well?
Hey, so this is Major Jessica Steinhoff. I'm the Deputy Director for the RapidX team. I support AFWERX and AFVentures for contracting. So happy to be here.
Awesome, thanks for being here. And then as other people join from the AFWERX team or otherwise, just raise your hand in the participants panel and we'll promote you so you can speak as well. That's who we've got for now. The big news today is that so actually we should probably correct on this. The commercial solutions opening for COVID-19 is live. And so Jess Steinhoff is going to speak to that today. That'll probably be a big focus item for the day since it's different from the previous 2 that we did last week. And then as always, my daughter may come downstairs. I apologize ahead of time if that happens. All right, first up, where can you find all this information? We have centralized that on the Air Force, rather the AFWERX website. So if you go to afwerx.af.mil, you will notice a yellow link at the top that says COVID-19 response effort. So when you follow that link, it's going to take you to this page. You can just bookmark this if you would want. It's afwerx.af.mil/coronavirus.html. This is where we're going to post real-time updates on all of the tools that we talk about today, all of the efforts that are ongoing for the Air Force, and some of which are ongoing for the Joint Acquisition Task Force. So it's a joint fight now, not just an Air Force fight. We will be posting those real-time here, so keep checking back to this for updates. If you scroll down on that page, you're going to notice a couple of things. So the first is 2 options to join the fight. If you are a member of the government, we have a volunteer form. So a number of folks have reached out saying, hey, I can offer my time and my expertise to make this process work better. We're very grateful for that. And we are putting you to work. So definitely that we do see those lists. So thank you for doing that if you're in the government. And for those who are non-government, so businesses, nonprofits, universities, individuals who want to help, we have a request for industry information, or RFI, that can be accessed via that link that says request for information non-government. It takes you to a fairly simple form, does not take that long to fill out, and allows you to give us inputs as to how you think you might be able to help. We have a team that's going through that list to be able to match up your solutions to real problems across the joint space related to COVID-19. And if we find a solution, we will have them reach out to you directly. And we're going to talk to that a little bit more detail. But this is a very low barrier, easy way to get your solution in front of potentially the right people who can use it and who can pay for it relatively quickly using some of the tools that we'll talk about today. You will notice that there are certain focus areas or areas of interest that we care about related to COVID-19. Now, this list is going to be the same as for the RFI that we just talked about and for this commercial solutions opening that Jess Steinhoff is going to talk about. But very quickly, they are combating the spread, welfare of citizens, readiness, logistics, industrial-based impacts, and then medical. And there's a 7th one, which is other. So we realize that we don't know everything that we need. There are things that we don't know. And so we leave ourselves open for you to pleasantly surprise us with some great solution that we did not know we needed. And that's if that is the case, if you don't fit squarely under the first 6, you can elect to do the 7th. Okay, so once you fill out that form, again, we've got a team that's composed of dozens of members at this point across the joint space who are linked into COVID-19 efforts. And so they're looking for certain solutions that can meet their needs. And as they find new solutions, they consider where might this fit within this broader effort. All right, so this is the team that's poring over your RFI responses to find matches to your solution and hopefully lead to deal flow for you, or at least an opportunity to participate in some way. Again, don't re-ping us afterward to say, hey, did you get my solution? If you get the automated response that gives you what we call an RFI number, it's essentially your number that's unique to you for your submission, then we receive your inputs. So you don't need to follow up. We will follow up with you directly as one of those COVID-19 OPT members finds a solution and problem fit for what you have proposed or what you have submitted to us. And we will start doing this on every Friday. We're going to send out an email to everybody who has submitted just to confirm, hey, we have not yet found a match for you. And so we're only going to send those out if we don't have any indications that one of our team members has reached out to you directly already. So even though I can just tell you here, if you haven't gotten a message yet, then we're still looking. It's helpful to get that in email form as well. So every Friday we'll send an email to folks who have not yet received a match, just letting you know that is the case. All right. So I want to pass it over now to Major Steinhoff, who is going to talk about the Commercial Solutions Opening from the Air Force Acquisition COVID-19 Task Force, or DAF Act for short. Over to you, Jess.
Hey, thanks, Steve. So if you could bring up your chart just for my recollection of the focus areas, that'll help me gauge what I'm going to chat about real quick. Okay, so as Steve talked about, the Commercial Solutions Opening is live on beta.sam.gov. So we are preparing areas of interest that correspond to these 7 mission focus areas right now. We believe the first one to go live will be combating the spread, because what we're being told from our JATF, or Joint Acquisition Task Force leaders, is that's the first one that we would like to attack, we shall say. So as of right now, you'll just have this is just showing on beta.sam. We have not pushed it to the AFWERX website. There's no button for you to respond just yet. However, in the coming days, probably hours, we're feverishly working to get that area of interest ready to post. And that is going to be how you respond. If you feel as though you have a solution for our problem set that fits within combating the spread. And within the coming days, we will have areas of interest that will fit within the rest of those 7 areas. 1 for welfare of citizens, 1 for readiness, 1 for logistics, industrial-based impacts, medical, and other. And then you will probably see what pops up as we learn more about what the needs are from the industrial base or just the problem set, individual areas of interest that will pop up to say, hey, we have this problem, can you solve it? So you will just need to keep checking back for the AOIs that pop up on our common front door, which is the AFWERX website, and if you can solve those problems for us. So that's it in a nutshell. It is on beta.sam, so what I encourage you to do now is just go ahead and read the entire solicitation as it is, and he's going to show you, yep, that's where it is, COVID. Yep, you can search there on beta.sam.gov, read through it, and that way you can be prepared for what we are going to ask for in the area of interest. And just like in true AFWERX Adventure fashion, we're going to make this extremely easy for you in that you're going to click the button, and then just like the RFI, if you responded to that, it's going to open up a Google form. We're going to collect some data from you, like your email, if you have a cage code, what area you are looking to respond to for us, that mission focus area. And then it's going to allow you to just kind of put a few more data points for us to collect. And then it's going to say submit. And that's going to fire you off a email that then locks you into a what we're calling a response commercial solution response number, and that is what your response number is tied to your submission, and that will flight follow you through potentially your contract, if indeed you are awarded a contract. And that's going to be your signal to then submit your commercial solution brief. That's what Spiral 1 is, and that's how you submit your solution to us. There's really no way for us to have you upload your briefing. That's what Spiral 1 is. Basically, it's either a 5-page white paper or a 15-slide deck. That's what we're going to ask for first. There's really no way for us to do that on the Google form and get it, because it's what we would consider like, it's sensitive to you, it's proprietary. We want to keep that information safe and secure. So the best way is for you to email that into our email box, which is cso.covid.response@afwerx.af.mil. But don't worry, you don't need to record that right now. It's within the solicitation. It's going to be in your email that you get back from us. Like, don't worry. But that's where you'll email your solution brief to us. And that's going to be basically you kicking off your first engagement with the tech team and with your contracting team to start this process of potential contract to help us with this fight against COVID. So I would say for now, just stay tuned for once that button goes live. We had to get the CSO, the overarching umbrella commercial solution out there, and that's what we've done. So we wanted to announce that today. Actually, I hit the button with butterflies in my stomach last night. Hit it live on beta.sam. I want you guys to just go read it and understand it, what we're going to ask for from you in those spirals, just so you can kind of wrap your brain around how the process is going to work. And then once the button goes live on the AFWERX website, that's when we will be ready to start receiving those commercial solutions briefs specific to the areas of interest. So that is it in a nutshell, Steve. You think? Okay.
So that was really helpful. A couple of follow-up questions just from hearing it from kind of fresh ears. To confirm, you've got this broad commercial solutions opening that is posted to beta.sam.gov, and we talked about how you can get there. But for each of these areas of interest, you're going to post an individual link once we are live for accepting those proposals, and that's going to come via Google form. Is that the case, or?
As we know today, there'll be one link.
Okay.
And then within the link, there'll be a button for you to choose which AOI you are responding to.
Okay,
So,
and where exactly will that link post?
That link will post on the AFWERX website, just like the RFI is posted. We're going to keep the RFI link live, but there'll be another button that will say commercial solutions opening, respond here. I don't know if it'll be bright and shiny and blinking. I don't know what it'll look like, but I'm just a little bit. But there'll be a link it'll be very clear to you. That's where you click if you're responding to the commercial solutions opening. And then within that Google form, you will click which AOI you're responding to. The only reason I mentioned that the combating the spread will be the first AOI, that's the signals I'm getting is our first need falls within that AOI. So I feel like that's the first one that's going to go live. So once the button goes, if you go in there to respond and you don't see one for logistics, it's probably because we don't have an AOI on beta.sam just yet. But there will be one button. We're going to keep it really simple, really easy. But really check beta.sam because that is the government point of entry. That is where me as a contracting, I am, charged by the Federal Acquisition Regulation to correspond with the Air Force or, with industry, what the opportunities are. That's where we're going to put the latest and greatest. So that's where you really should check first. We are just trying to make it super easy for everybody by using the AFWERX front door and AFVentures front door and having the Google form, but always check beta.sam. The areas of interest as they go live, there'll be attachments to the COVID, the CSO COVID response. There'll be attachments on there. It's, they redid this website recently. That's why it's a beta. So, you know, and we know we have a screenshot here, but if you went to the website and you just scroll down just a bit, you'll see the attachments. The attachment is actually where the PDF for the full CSO is, where you can, you know, pull it down and read it, digest it. Any AOIs will be attachments. So I would say go there first, see where we're at, which ones we've issued. But the buttons on the coronavirus response or our AFWERX website will kind of correspond. There will be posted to beta.sam. Next step will be the links and the buttons to submit your submissions on the AFWERX website. Does that help?
No, that's great. Thank you. And then final question is, you know, is there any limitation on the type of organization that can apply for this?
These are non-traditional businesses only. So we're not limiting it to small, large, none of that. But the caveat for commercial, well, not caveat, but commercial solutions openings, there is, read it, you know, I hate to be that, you know, the broken record, but when you read who the target audience is for a commercial solutions opening, there is a definition of non-traditional, and it is in the language, and it basically states, and you know, you should go read it, but it says you can't have done business with the government for it's like 12 months.
Yeah, so here's just to reference the language. So a non-traditional defense contractor is defined in 10 U.S. Code 2302 as an entity that is not currently performing and has not performed for at least the 1 year period preceding the solicitation of sources by the DoD for the procurement of or transaction, any contract or subcontract for the DoD that is subject to full coverage under the cost accounting standards prescribed pursuant to 41 U.S. Code 1502 and the regulations implementing such section. And so, yeah, so it is kind of complex. And that's why Major Steinhoff says go to the solicitation itself and read through that. But you're correct on the 12 months there. So definitely check out that language in the definition section of the CSO.
Now, just because the CSO is only catching non-traditional businesses, we have your RFI responses for everybody, right? And there is 4 levels of effort, LOEs out there that are, you know, looking at this problem that the Joint Task Force is, you know, trying to solve for the country. And there is opportunities for every type of business, every type, large, small, nonprofit, university, to help solve this problem. This tool that we've just launched on beta.sam and that we're going to, you know, employ here is just one tool, just like what Pockets is going to talk about is the D2P2. Probably I saw some questions coming up in the Q&A. That's just another tool in a contracting officer and program manager's toolkit and the acquisition toolkit. So don't feel discouraged. Don't feel like, oh, I thought I was going to get a contract and I have a contract and now I can't do this, you know, submit in the CSO. So I don't want anyone to be like, wah, right? Like there will be other ways that you can engage and help us in this fight if you can't fit into this here.
Awesome. Okay, that's all I've got for now. Thank you so much. And just so everybody knows too, Major Steinhoff and Austin DeLorme, there's a whole team that worked, I mean, well into the weekend, late nights, early mornings to get this out. So I'm really grateful to you guys and your team for doing that. Well done.
Thanks.
All right, you bet. Okay, so on to the next one. So I'm going to talk now about another tool that is available to us and to you to apply your solutions, and that is the SBIR Direct to Phase 2. And SBIR stands for Small Business Innovative Research. The topic number, there's several of these topics out there across all the services and several federal agencies. For the Air Force, this particular topic is called AF20.R, as in Romeo, -DCS01. DCS01. And so we're going to talk through that and what some of the rules and benefits are of using this. First off, how do you get to the solicitation itself? There are 2 ways to do that. The primary portal for submission, or really the portal for SBIR submission, its short name is DSIP, DSIP. But if you just search for SBIR portal, it's your first hit. But the link is also up there if you want to just follow that. In the top right, once you get there, you'll notice something that says topics. If you click topics and then scroll down a little bit, you're going to see 2 tabs. So DARPA and Air Force are currently what are listed there. And if you click Air Force, you will see that the only one listed is the X20.R solicitation, and that's for this topic that we're talking about today. It is worth noting that there was a small amendment last night that is now posted, and you can see that there, X20.R Amendment 1. It hasn't changed any of the major ways that you can apply, but make sure when you are going through to submit your proposal that you're going off of the most current information, which is in that amendment. So we will continue to post any amendments as things change. They shouldn't change too much, if at all, anymore, but just keep checking back to make sure that you have the most current set of instructions when you're going to apply. Also, the attachments that are relevant to your submission can be found on this website. So you can see that the list of focus areas, which we're going to talk through. There's an item called a customer memorandum and a CSO fund matching form. We can talk through those a little bit. I also want to note here that there is a call that will be this Friday, and then every Friday after that leading up to the close of the solicitation, that is for this SBIR topic only. So we're going to hit the really high points, the wave tops today, but at Friday at 1400 Eastern time, so 2 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to have a call that's dedicated to this. I encourage you to check back in on that if you are interested in learning more and getting a little bit more in the weeds. You can see the relevant dates there are on the left side of the page for X20.R. So it was posted on March 30th. Actually, the portal opens for submission on April 8th, and then it closes for everybody on April 30th at noon. And so no late proposals will be accepted. It's very important that you follow the full instructions in the solicitation document, and you'll notice there that noon on the 30th is when they're all due. The other way to get there, again, is through beta.sam.gov, like Major Steinhoff talked about for the other commercial solutions opening. If you select contract opportunities in the search window and then just search X20.R SBIR, it will be the only response. You can see there what that looks like, SBIR, program X20.R, commercial solutions opening. And once you click that, again, you can scroll down, and this is another way that you can find the instructions as well as any relevant attachments. Oops. Okay, so a quick look at this tool. Small Business Innovative Research Program has been around since the 80s. It is a chunk of money that must be spent on small businesses doing innovative research each year. Each of the services has their own pot of SBIR money, as do other federal agencies. For the Air Force this year, it's on the order of $800+ million is the anticipated number. So realize this is a good chunk of money that needs to be spent on small businesses. We realize that some of that money can go towards the COVID-19 fight. And so we created a set of focus areas on the open solicitation, which is a direct to phase 2, and I'll talk about what that means. But just to say, hey, this is something that we care about during this challenging time. Now, direct to phase 2, what does that mean? This is a 3-phase program where typically there is a $50,000 3-month phase 1, where you're trying to find who is your customer inside the Air Force who can use your solution, and using that information and contact with that customer to inform the way that you perform your research and development. So what things do you change or modify or add to your solution to be eligible for phase 2 or during phase 2. So what we're saying here is you can skip phase 1 with a direct to phase 2. Now, make sure you're reading the instructions fully, because there's a lot more than what is on the single slide. And John McCanny will probably attest to that at the end, because he's our SBIR Center of Excellence guru. But this is a up to $1 million funding opportunity, not just for COVID-19 related solutions. I want to foot stomp that. Any dual use solution. And what that means is it has a commercial application as well as a potential Air Force application can apply through this direct to phase 2. So one caveat here is your organization must be a U.S. owned and controlled small business concern that has less than 500 employees, including your affiliates. Now, that's a very condensed version of the actual rules here. I did post the link, which I'm not going to read out, but that is the link to see the full eligibility standards for SBIR. Again, the solicitation closes on April 30th at 12 p.m. Eastern time, so that's noon. Attachment 1 of the solicitation is the list of focus areas. That corresponds to the focus areas that we've talked about already previously in this call. There is some added detail around those focus areas as well, so definitely check out that attachment. And then this is really important now. Again, you don't need to address COVID-19 to apply for this solicitation, but if you do, putting on my COVID-19 hat, what I want you to do is send an email to COVID, so that's COVID, at afwerx.af.mil. And that's up on the screen, with the subject line SBIR 20.R - the name of your firm. So again, that's SBIR 20.R - the name of your firm. What that's going to do is get your email to the right place on our OPT, so that team that's going through and trying to match solutions to problems. And what can happen is that will result in dialogue that may or may not lead to this thing called a customer memorandum. So this is a tool that we always have with the open topic directive phase 2s. It is our way to signify that there's an actual Air Force interest and associated Air Force need for the solution that you're providing or you're proposing to provide and build. Right? So we don't want to invest money into something that nobody wants. We also don't want to invest money in something that even if somebody wants it, it doesn't have a viable pathway to actually get fielded and impact us in some positive way. And so we created this customer memorandum that is a templatized document that is filled out by whoever that Air Force customer that you find is, who can document, this is the organization that I am. I'm interested in this solution to solve this problem for me. And it even gets to the point of saying in granular detail, if we fund this direct to phase 2 effort, what exactly will they deliver? So it's, and you as in the companies, what will you deliver? And it's a list of milestones and what the deliverables look like and how much funding is associated. So a lot of the groundwork of building out the phase 2 plan occurs via this customer memorandum. So rewinding a little bit, you require this customer memorandum to be able to apply for this direct to phase 2, even if your solution is related to COVID-19. So by emailing that address, covid@afwerx.af.mil, you're getting your solution in front of people who might be able to sign one of those customer memorandums for you. I know that was a lot of detail. That was just summating a lot of what was in the commercial solutions opening for SBIR. But please do go to the beta.sam.gov or the DSIP portal to actually look at the source language on the solicitation. And that's what you should base your proposal on. So before I go to the next thing, John, anything you'd like to add or change on that?
Nothing too big. Just I wanted to clarify that under the phase 1, you mentioned it's a 50K. I just wanted to clarify for people it is up to 50K. That's a threshold, or but if your solution costs $20,000, then that is absolutely okay too.
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that. And realize too, when you go into the solicitation for direct to phase 2, there won't be mention of the full phase 1 instructions because there is no phase 1 associated with this direct to phase 2. If you are interested in that phase 1 of up to $50,000, and you haven't quite found your customer in the Air Force yet, that might be better suited to you. That one is going to open with what we call the 20.2 cycle. So each year we have 3 releases, .1, .2, and .3. The .R means that it's an out-of-cycle release in this case. So it's not aligned with .1 or .2. We thought this was a special case that we needed to release. But the .2, the next cycle this year, I think it closes as of now in July, but make sure you're checking back to the DSIP portal to see the actual dates for when the solicitation opens and closes. Just as we saw on the previous slides on the left there, you can see when the posting, the open, and the close date are. Awesome. Thank you, John. Okay, so we've talked about the RFI open to everybody. We've talked about the commercial solutions opening that Major Steinhoff mentioned is open to non-traditionals. And then we talked about the SBIR direct to phase 2, which has a COVID-19 focus area as well. And that is open to small businesses that meet the eligibility requirements. Just realize that this is always evolving. We are getting faster, better, kind of smarter on the way we execute every couple of days or every day here. So keep checking back if you're interested. The next call is going to be on Thursday, April 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. There's a link to attend. You can also find this on the AFWERX.af.mil website. Just go to that coronavirus page. And we're going to post real-time updates there, as I mentioned. And we will also be posting the recording of this call to that website. We've already posted the previous 2 recordings, as well as a copy of this presentation. Just realize the presentation that's up right now is from last Thursday, and we're going to post this presentation fairly soon. So that is all I had from a presentation perspective. Unless there's anything else from Major Steinhoff or from Pockets before we go into Q&A.
I don't have anything to add, but I think usually in your ROE, you just say if you put your questions in the Q&A versus the chat, because we're not going to look at the chat.
Yes, thank you. So Q&A only is going to be our source of questions. And I see we've got 92 in there, so we're going to do our best to get through those. Kyle Wright, are you, I think you're up now, but another member of the AFWERX team, Kyle Wright. Mind doing just a real quick intro, and then if you wouldn't mind helping us read out some of the questions. And you might be muted still. Here, I'm going to unmute you. Kyle, can you hear us, buddy? Okay, let's pivot. So either
yeah, you're cutting out on me. Just a second.
you're a little broken.
All
Try. Yeah, we're having trouble hearing you. How about this? No, it's too broken. If you wouldn't mind going back on mute. So either Jess or Clockers, one of y'all be willing to read at least for the next 30 minutes before we cut this some of the questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. Sorry to pivot you guys.
I can read them.
Ah, you're the best. Okay, thanks, Kyle. Sorry about that. All right, Jess, over to you.
What type of information are you looking for in the attachments, in the attachment section for the RFI?
The attachments. Okay, so really good question. You know, we intentionally don't dictate exactly what we want there, to kind of leave it open for what things you think are important for us. Some guidelines though, especially because we have, you know, thousands of submissions coming in, we can't go through every one of those in very fine detail, at least not in the beginning. So we have a heuristic of, we find out what we're generally interested in, and then we're going to dig into that additional detail as we need it. So what I would say is don't lead in with very complex or long documents. Try to be brief and brilliant and concise, right? And so if you want to have some kind of like pitch materials that are associated with your solution, that's absolutely fine. If you have a pitch video of some sort, or if you have a short document that somehow characterizes the value proposition of your solution or your idea. So bottom line there is we're not restricting what things you can submit, but in general, don't lead in with something that is very long and complex, because it will not be consumed by our team most likely. If we do need additional in-depth detail, that may happen at some point. Again, we're going to have someone reach out directly from the OPT who's perusing through these results to you to request that specific info. Good question.
OPT stands for?
Operational Planning Team. Thank you. So that is the team that is trying to match the solutions that you are submitting to needs somewhere within the Department of Defense related to COVID-19.
Okay, cool. Okay, does a phase 2 proposal that involves human trials require an IRB approval to be accepted, or can IRB approval and subsequent DoD HRPO office approval for human trials be part of the phase 2 milestones? How does this affect funding timelines if this is the case?
Really good question. I'm sure John will have something to say on this too, but the bottom line is go to the solicitation, and there is a section that specifically discusses human trials, animal trials, recombinant DNA trials, things like that. And so read through what we say on that. It's fairly specific. I think the language is that once you get to a point at which you're actually executing part of that trial on one of those subjects, you need to have the approvals in place. I don't think that it says you cannot be awarded period dot. It's just that you can't actually start performing that specific work until you have those approvals. John, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yep, that's pretty much accurate. I'll start obviously with the major point, which is read the solicitation. But what's going to happen is if there's a proposal that is viewed as having that human use, or there's also the animal use portion, what your contracting officer might do is have to reach out to you and engage with you guys on the specific requirements that the human use applies towards, and figure out a CLIN structure or a contracting methodology that'll make that work. But the bottom line is, you're right, those approvals, if you're going to do anything or proposing anything that is going to be by definition human use, those approvals need to be in place before that portion of the work is funded and on contract.
Cool. Okay. Hello, have a question with regards to matching funds and how do we get the investor to connect with the Air Force Venture team? Also wanted to find out delay in the SBIR phase 2 evaluations.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I'll answer that in two parts. So the first one is on the matching funding and how you get the investor in touch with us. The reality is we don't need that beforehand. You will see in the instructions in the solicitation how you characterize that there is matching funding coming into play. So it's $1 million ceiling for everybody, regardless of whether or not you have matching funding. But matching funding does reflect positively on one of our evaluation criteria, which is your commercialization potential. And so it gives you a better shot of being selected, at least from that particular criterion. And so how do you capture that there's matching funding? There's a section in the solicitation that talks about that. We created what we call a matching fund form that you have to fill out, and it has all the key information about when the funds are going to arrive, how much is it, and then any details around the use of those funds. From a private investor perspective, there may be a point at which during the due diligence, we say, hey, you said that there was going to be private investment. We follow up to just kind of confirm that that is real and that is going to yield results, essentially. So long story short is we don't need to have a chat with them beforehand. Now, if there is something where hearing from us would be helpful, I think the best shot there is actually to have them join the Friday 2 p.m. SBIR AMA, because what we don't want to do is get into we are giving special treatment to one person or one investor, which can get kind of hairy for everybody. If they ask these questions in a broad forum, maybe that can help to lend credibility to the process without getting us in any trouble, if that makes sense. The second question was delays in evaluations. I'm not quite sure which SBIR cycle you're referring to. From 19.2 and 19.3 phase 2s have been selected and are awaiting their awards. And in some cases, they're awaiting their notification. One of the things that we are dealing with is budget and fiscal constraints, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic that's occurring. But we will be forthcoming with when those contracts will be awarded, or at least when the intent is to award. And expect to see a message from the lead evaluator for that particular topic for you. For 20.R, we can't necessarily speak to when all the evaluations will be done in an exact way, but you'll notice in the solicitation that we say within 30 days, the intent is to have notified you of your selection status, right? Not necessarily awarded, but within 30 days, we've notified you, are you going to get an award? And then with that notification will be the next steps.
In the interest of government and industry talking, can you give us the contact info for the POC for each of the approaches under the focus area, i.e. approach 5A, B, 5C under focus area 5, so we can communicate directly and understand the customer requirements better? And I think that's probably corresponding to like the focus areas that we had listed in the risk, for the CSO.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I can answer from a SBIR perspective, and then Major Steinhoff, if you want to answer from the CSO, the other CSO. For us, the answer is no. We're not having the one-on-ones beforehand, and that really is just a bandwidth challenge, right? So again, there is a very high volume, which we're very happy about, of people who are interested, but we centralized it into this one box so that our team can more effectively engage with you. If we started having those one-on-ones, we wouldn't be able to get the message out to everybody that needs it. So long story short is if you're interested, whether it's 5A, 5B, or any one of those other focus areas in SBIR, do send that email. Again, if it relates to COVID-19, to covid@afwerx.af.mil. And then try to concisely describe what your solution is so that you can start that dialogue with those who might be interested. And they are going to find you. So they'll see you in their responses, and they'll see you in that email, and then they'll reach out to you if they are interested. So good question.
And I'll kind of piggyback on that. We are building out these teams as we speak for our response. So I think it's the same thing. It's a bandwidth issue on our end, and the boxes are our way to manage the responses. And we have been, overwhelmed in a good way with your responses to those RFIs and those focus areas. So we're just siphoning through them. And we've got a great team on the back end. And so we're at a place where we're doing our best, and hopefully those questions are those folks will be able to reach out back to you. I know, we're working on that battle rhythm on how communication is kind of come back to you guys in industry. And we're working through that.
Cool.
Okay, we are a non-government company applying for direct to phase 2 funding. So we do not have a phase 1 feasibility study. What shall we submit in our proposal for that section?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we can't necessarily advise too directly on what things you should or should not include, but just realize that for the direct to phase 2, what we're doing and the way that we're allowed to justify that we're doing a direct to phase 2 is that on your own time, you accomplish the same things that would have been done in phase 1. And so that includes things like finding your Air Force customer, contemplating the work with them, and the means through which you were able to do that. And so what I would describe is, again, if you are applying to direct to phase 2, you must have that customer memorandum, which expresses the interest from the Air Force member. How did you arrive at that? And what were kind of the results of your internal phase 1 that occurred?
Okay. Is there anything else companies can do to find MOU signers besides the COVID email address?
So that's a really good question. One thing I would say is just because you're working with us on these three, the RFI, the the CSO that Major Steinoff mentioned, the SBIR Direct to Phase 2, doesn't mean that you should not be pursuing other opportunities. And so any RFI that is out there or request for proposals or anything across the Air Force that might be relevant, use that as a potential opportunity to find a customer. And when you're talking to them, you can tell them like, look, there's a way that you can leverage SBIR Air Force dollars to get after your need without having to use your own contracting resources. So that might be appealing to them as well. So one, pursue whatever requests for proposals or information are out there, even when they're not ours. So that's one. And then two is the customer discovery process is hard. And that's one of the things that is characteristic of this Air Force Ventures SBIR program, at least, is that we put a lot of onus on the founders to perform that customer discovery, to find their customers, to build out a plan that meets their needs. And so whether it's through things like finding people on LinkedIn, just doing Google searches to try to find, who are the relevant Air Force bases and wings and units that might benefit from your solution, hiring a veteran. You can search for things like the Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, which brings together a lot of industry and government personnel to try to innovate together. There's a lot of things that are options to you that are out there, but we aren't necessarily playing switchboard except for that COVID email that we talked about. So it's not easy, and we definitely understand that. I would also foot stomp again that 20.2 is the next cycle. We will have a phase 1 associated with that. And so that is that opportunity where you don't need to go into phase 1 having already found your customer. You're actually getting 90 days, so 3 months for the phase 1 and up to $50,000 to be able to find that customer, propose the work with them for phase 2. So that might be better suited to you if you don't yet have your customer.
Good job. We have a technology solution for one of the direct to phase 2 open topics. However, we do not have contacts within the Air Force in a relevant area for the open topic. Can AFWERX help us engage potential Air Force customers and users to engage them for consideration to get an MOU? So it's kind of.
So yeah, we kind of just talked about this one. I do encourage you. So when you're at the AFWERX website, SBIR and the COVID-19 response are not the only things that we're doing. There's also AFWERX challenges, which are, it's involves bringing a customer with a real need somewhere in the Air Force, adequately scoping that problem, and then defining it in such a way that industry is more likely to understand. And it has its own down selection process associated with it. There are a number of challenges that are live right now. And so I would say just kind of go through the AFWERX website to see what are the other things that we're doing. And one of those might pertain to you. And one of those certainly can be used to find your customer, and you can leverage that against SBIR. There's no issue with doing that. Aside from that, I wouldn't expect any kind of like one-on-one introductions to occur again based on my answer to the previous question.
And then this one maybe kind of talks to the MOU part, but if you are responding to one of the COVID topics in the solicitation, do you still need a customer MOU, or can we apply assuming there's a customer for these requirements?
Really great question. The answer is yes, you still need that customer memorandum, and that's why we have that COVID at AFWERX address to help you try to find it.
Yeah, and that's specifically for the SBIR COVID one.
Yes. Yep.
For the CSO that I talked about in the very beginning, that we brought up, that's I just posted last night. That is not SBIR related. You don't need an MOU for that. So just kind of keep those two separate. Go read them, and then you'll kind of keep them straight in your brain. Okay. All right. Next step. Can I get matching funds for COVID response SBIR if I already got matching funds before in other SBIR phase 2s?
Yes, you may.
And then this was a 3-part question. You require Air Force customer for this COVID response SBIR. Is providing an extra customer from other DoD agencies helpful? If so, can I use the MOU template provided for an Air Force customer for non-Air Force customers too?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The answer is yeah, that is helpful. You can, as long as you have one Air Force customer who provides one of those customer memorandums, you can have other customers and other services or agencies as well. They can even go as far as to provide matching funding. One caveat is you need to make sure that your Air Force customer is aware of and okay with the other work that will be proposed on phase 2 with those non-Air Force customers.
And then the third part is if I don't have an Air Force customer, simply because there is no relevant customer within the Air Force for the proposed solution, is it still worthy to apply with an MOU from a different agency, or is it a waste of time?
Yeah, so the read that we got on this one is you do need at least one Air Force customer. And so I would say in the absence of finding that, then is it a waste of time? I mean, from a selection perspective, it may be, but from a performing that customer discovery and leading up to that, it might still be helpful. But yes, you will require an Air Force customer to be selected.
Okay. Can you confirm in 20.R that an Air Force customer can provide funds in addition to the 1 million SBIR ceiling? So they add 200K, meaning that 20.R can be 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. So, sorry. Absolutely. So the answer to that is the most that you can receive in SBIR funding on the X20.R SBIR is 1 million. But that's not to say that you can't have other customer funding within the government that is adding on top of that, and they would just send those funds to us. Again, we talk about this in the solicitation, like the actual mechanics and how you can propose that and how we're going to do that. But they would send the funding to us. We would execute their funding and ours at the same time if you're selected. And so in theory, I mean, you could ask for $1 million of SBIR, and you could ask for 10 million on top of that from that other government customer, and adding together that would equal 11, right? And so, yeah, we don't limit the total contract, just the SBIR contribution.
Yep. And then the last part they wrote was just asking for it. On the first COVID call, someone said anything over 1 million is an automatic elimination in the review process. Thank you for clarity. So I think you explained the reason. It's just the SBIR dollars. Yeah,
and also the point that you're making there too is in the first call we did say that, but that was again in reference to SBIR only. So if you are proposing for more than $1 million of SBIR funds, then that is grounds for not evaluating that proposal.
Yeah. Just read the solicitation. That helps to frame it in your brain. Okay. How do we find an MOU in such short notice?
Yeah, so we've kind of discussed this one ad nauseum at this point, but just to put a pin in it, all those kind of potential pathways of hiring a veteran, Defense Entrepreneurs Forum, go on LinkedIn and Google to find, as well as doing the email address covid@afwerx.af.mil are ways that you can get that customer memorandum. And again, if you don't have it, then the X20.2 solicitation will be coming out relatively soon, expected to close in early July. That will have a phase 1 that does not require you to have found that already. This is a direct to phase 2, and as such, it just requires one.
Yeah. Okay, we're only on, I don't know how many questions we've done, but we've got a lot. So we're gonna make we're at about 11 minutes to go. We're gonna just keep trudging along.
Rapid fire. Yeah.
Is CTMA part of the joint force? Do you want to burden the system by submitting them through AFWERX? I don't know what CTMA is.
I don't either. Maybe clarify with the question at the end there.
Yeah.
I don't either.
How is the CSO funded through an OTA, SBIR, or IDIQ? So I can take this one. So those are, you're kind of speaking a few different languages there. OTA is a type of agreement. SBIR is kind of a program, and then funding, and then IDIQ is a type of contract. So the funding, those are all different kind of languages you're speaking there. So I would say you just worry about your solution, and we will get you through the process. Okay. I submitted a response to the RFI yesterday, but did not get the automated response with an RFI number. Is there supposed to be a delay to get the RFI, or was that a glitch perhaps?
Yeah, so there shouldn't be a delay, any more than a couple minutes. So that does sound like it's a glitch. After this, there's the opportunity for you to, I think, respond to questions via Zoom, and that will ultimately get to me. So just send me your information on that, and we'll look into what the source of the issue was.
Yep, and the next question was the same. So, if you responded yesterday with an RFI and you didn't get an automated response, make sure to reach out, answer, and then we'll get back to you. Do we submit a response to the RFI as well as the CSO? And we answered that at the top of the hour. Yes, there'll be another button for you to respond to the CSO. So RFI was just us collecting information as to who can respond, and then now the CSO for the COVID. Yeah, so we were clear. Will the links being posted for the combating the spread be just an RFI or a CSO or something else? And will it be SBIR like DD or some other kind of solicitation? I think this probably came in as I was talking, and then Steve maybe asked probably to clear, how to clarify. So hopefully that explanation explained that one. Where would a mobile solution for triage expansion that can cover several elements of medical needs best fit into the CSO focus area? We have a system that can be transported and provided. 3 different features simultaneously. We are thinking about it could be adapted, but I want to know what area this fits best into. I would say probably respond to the RFI for this person.
Yeah, and when you're selecting which of those focus areas you're applying to, you can only pick one, and so you have to. In some cases, you might apply, or you might be relevant to multiple. So what I would say there is just do your best to pick the one that your gut call you think is most relevant. And as we're reading through it, that doesn't mean that we're going to just slough it off if it's not relevant to a certain focus area. What I've seen happen several times is one person applies to a certain focus area, the OPT, so the operational planning team, goes through and sees that and says, hey, I actually think this is more relevant to a different focus area, and then passes it off to them. So it's not the end of the line if you pick the quote unquote wrong one. Just do your best.
So how do the mission focus areas relate to the focus areas related to the COVID SBIR? And I think you answered that. They are the same.
Yep.
Can an opportunity go directly to phase 2? Is there a requirement for an Air Force user to complete a customer memo, or can a member of the US government, as this IC, be used in their place, given this is a joint approach?
Yeah, so we addressed that one. You still require at least one Air Force customer, but you can have multiple other stakeholders providing funding or not providing funding as well.
Is the CSO to fund solutions for the JATF? In other words, is the JATF funding running through the DAF Act, or is this a separate effort? So the CSO that I spoke of is in support of the DAF Act, which has been stood up in support of the JATF. So we will use this tool, this commercial solutions opening, to support whatever requirements come from the Joint Acquisition Task Force. So hopefully that helps. We are hoping to understand how we can assist the JATF with the readiness focus area, which pertains to continuity of business processes. And can JATF describe current day-to-day challenges and potential pain points for continuing operations throughout the outbreak? I think there's a focus area specifically that might talk to that. Isn't there one?
Yeah, so these types of questions too, they're going to, here we go. So just realize that over time, we do have the ability to amend those areas of interest as we get more information. So right now, our way of communicating that to you all is just by having the existence of the focus area, but we will post as amendments to the CSO if we change those areas or we add to them or those types of things. So you can see that in that second to last paragraph on the slide right now.
And then the next question was, do we submit under AFWERX or beta.sam.gov? So what we're going to do is we're going to use our common front door, which is the AFWERX website, via that link that will be posted, within a day or two for you to respond there. And then what it'll do is it'll send you your email for you to submit your commercial solutions brief, just like we're doing for all the other prior engagements with AFWERX.
And I'm assuming the form will be, or the CSO itself will be amended to include the link. Is that the case too?
One more time.
Sorry, I was saying I'm assuming that the CSO will be amended to include the link to that form once it's live, or is that not the case?
Probably. I mean, as we post the attachments, I can add, this is the link to the AFWERX website. For sure.
Awesome.
How long after the close of the RFI 4-30 to likely first contract award? Same question for CSO. So I'll let you go first, Steve.
Yeah, so realize that the RFI isn't actually a request for proposals, it's a request for information. So you're not competing for some type of award on that, you're just providing information. The conversations that result from that RFI may lead to some type of award, or they may direct you or ask you if you want to apply through a different vehicle. Heck, maybe someone, if you've gone through the RFI, so a member of the OPT reaches out to you and says, we also have this CSO that might be more applicable to you. So with that, there aren't awards coming off of the RFI. Back to you, Jess.
And then for the CSO, that's us starting the process for potential contract awards. But yeah, to foot stomp what Steve said, request for information is what we would call in the contract lingo a sources sought. We're just figuring out what our potential sources for our, we're doing market research or research. So we shall see what comes in the near future as far as contract awards. Is RFA submittal on AFWERX site separate effort from the CSO response? Yes, RFI was just the information, us gathering market intelligence of who can help, and then now we're doing the more formal solicitation. Okay, is the CSO different from the SBIR in that we are able to be awarded each? Could we accept each, or would we have to choose one or the other? So for the solicitation, the CSO that I talked about, remember that's non-traditional, the definition that Steve read. So there will be some left and right limits there. And then, for SBIR, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, also to say there's nothing that precludes you from winning, from submitting to the RFI, from submitting to the CSO and submitting SBIR and then winning all of them. They just cannot be what we call essentially equivalent work. So they need to be differentiated. And so just realize that if you do submit the same proposal for both the open CSO, or at least the same content, the same solution for the commercial solutions opening and for the direct to phase 2 SBIR, if you're selected for both, you can only be awarded one. And so, at least for the case of SBIR, we very clearly ask for that information during your submission process of, are you submitting essentially equivalent work to any other proposals across the government? You need to reveal that to us. And also, have you been awarded for essentially equivalent work for anywhere throughout the government? So anyway, yes, you can be awarded both. They just need to be different things that you're awarded for.
And then, does AFWERX handle the Air Force customer outreach for 20.R, or can we reach out? So we kind of answered that one already, so I'll keep it moving. We're on our last, I think this might be one of our last questions before we have to cut today. Can we submit with a partner or address or particular mission focus area, or are we expecting individual? Are you expecting individual submissions? Can we submit with a partner to address? Oh, so like teaming. You can do whatever you feel is best for your business. You're not going to dictate that, I don't think.
That's a really good question. So from the SBIR perspective, realize that there are rules about subcontractors essentially, and the amount of work that needs to be done by whoever is the primary organization who's awarded, and then how much they can sub out to other organizations. So read through the solicitation to get the full rules on that when it comes to SBIR.
So I apologize, guys. We only made it through what questions were submitted between 12:03 and 12:14, and it looks like we've got 128 questions. So that's the nature of the beast, but we will have another AMA, right, Steve?
Yeah, so the next one is on Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and we're going to keep doing this every Tuesday and Thursday until it doesn't make sense anymore.
Okay. So over to you. I'm going to mute so you can.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess, so much. Pockets, thank you. Kyle, thanks for being here. Joey as well. Just want to say thank you to everybody who submitted, either is planning to submit for direct phase 2 SBIR, is considering the open CSO, and who has submitted information in the RFI. We've been overwhelmed by the number of results, as Major Steinhoff mentioned, and we are doing our best to do justice to those who have taken the time to submit those to us. And so if you've not received a response from us yet, realize that our team is working very fast to do that, to find, to match up your solution to problems we have within the joint space, because we're working with JATF. And again, on Fridays, we're going to send an email out to everybody just saying, hey, you submitted to the RFI, but we have not found a match yet, just to give you the warm fuzzies that we're still looking and we haven't lost you. So anyway, thank you again so much for your time, and we'll be back in touch on Thursday. See ya.